Hello, my dear friends. Welcome to Russian with Passion. My name is Antonia Romakar, and today we're going to talk about tenses in Russian. So we're going to start with present tense in the Russian language. So first of all, let's take a look at several sentences. In Russian, we will take я работаю. And in English, I work, я работаю, I am working, я работаю, and I have been working, also я работаю. What? So in English, the structure of tenses, the system of tenses is much more complicated than in Russian. So in Russian, we have just one present tense. We do not have present simple, present continuous, present perfect, and present perfect continuous. We just have present tense. That's it. There's one more thing here. We also have aspects. Совершенный вид and несовершенный вид глагола. So we have perfective and imperfective verbs. Different aspects. They help us to differentiate between actions which are happening and the actions which have already happened. So perfective verbs denote actions which has finished, which has happened, and which have a result. But we are not talking about aspects today. I want to point out once again that as for present tense, it is just one form, one present tense in the Russian language. It's good news. Anyway, so we say я работаю, and it can have different meanings. How do we differentiate? Am I working right now, or I work usually and every day, and so on? Well, here some additional words help us. Different adverbs like every day, каждый день, and сейчас, now, and so on. For example, we can say я работаю каждый день. I work every day. У меня нет выходных. I do not have weekends. Every day is a work day for me. Я работаю каждый день. I work every day. If we say я работаю сейчас, then I am working now. Because now we are talking about an action which is going on right now. Or let's say я работаю уже 5 часов. I have been working for 5 hours already. So, as you can see, in English we have different tenses. In Russian, it is just one present tense. But we have additional words, additional means of the Russian language to help us understand what kind of action I am talking about. Okay, good. Now, to put a verb into present tense, you need to know its conjugation type. Do you know what conjugations are? If you don't, then make sure to watch this class devoted to 2 types of conjugation in the Russian language. So verbs usually have, they can be of the first conjugation type or of the second. And there are some verbs which are peculiar and they have some specific forms. But what's important here is to define the type. When you are ready, if you have defined the type already, then it will be a piece of cake. So, in Russian, in present tense, we have 6 forms according to the number, singular and plural, and according to the person, first person, second person, and third person. So, for example, I, я, is first person, singular. Ты is second person, singular. Мы is first person, plural, and so on. If you do not remember the pronouns, personal pronouns, then I'm going to direct you to this class devoted to personal pronouns. But we continue with the present tense. Now, before we talk about the forms, let's define when we are supposed to use present tense. So we use it when we talk about some facts. or regular actions, or habitual actions. In this case, in English, we usually use present simple. In Russian, we use present. We also use present tense, настоящее время, в русском языке, in the Russian language, when we talk about some ongoing actions, or actions which are happening right now, which are in progress. So here we are talking about present continuous, while in Russian we just use present, настоящее время. And thirdly, actions which began in the past and are still happening right now. So here, present perfect continuous, not present perfect. Because when we use present perfect, we talk about a finished action. And according to the Russian language, if the action has finished, it doesn't matter when it has finished. Whether it finished a year ago, yesterday, or it has just finished 1 second ago, it doesn't matter. It's already in the past because it has finished. So that's why for Russians it's very difficult to understand the logic of present perfect. Because for us, Russians, if something has happened, if it has finished, then it is in the past already. So present perfect belongs to the past, not present. Okay, now let's get to the forms. Speaking briefly about the two conjugation types in the Russian language, as for the first one, if you take a look at the infinitive before the ending t, you have a suffix. If it is a, ya, ye, ova, or nu, it is almost 100% the first conjugation type. Well, there are exceptions, but still. And if you take a look at the infinitive and you see before t, the soft sign, the suffix e, then it's almost surely the second conjugation type. But there are exceptions, as I have already said. So make sure to watch the class devoted to conjugation types in Russian. So the general formula of present tense in the Russian language is the stem plus the ending. The ending which is typical for present tense. However, there are some peculiarities. If you talk about the first conjugation type verbs, then you take the infinitive, remove the ending t, the soft sign, and add the ending. But if you talk about the second conjugation type, then you are supposed to remove the last 3 letters from the infinitive and then add the ending, which is typical for present tense. Examples. Читать. We remove t and we have читаю. Говорить. We remove the last 3 letters и, t, the soft sign, and we have говор plus the ending ю, говорю, and so on. So the endings are u, you for the first person singular, ешь, иш for the second person singular, ет, it for the third person singular, ем, им for the first person plural, ете, ите for the second person plural, and ut, ют, at, ят for the third person plural. And now let's practice and conjugate some verbs. First, let's take the verb читать. The first thing we do is define the conjugation type. Here it is number 1 because we have r before t. That's why the forms will be я читаю, ты читаешь, он читает, мы читаем, вы читаете, они читают. And let's take another verb, ходить. It has e before t, that's why it's the second type. So we say я хожу, Ты ходишь, он ходит, мы ходим, вы ходите, они ходят. As you can see, in the first person singular, the stem consonant changes. But we will talk about it in our next class devoted to present tense in the Russian language. Moreover, a stress shift happens, and we will also talk about it in our next class. By the way, notice that in the first person singular and in the third person plural, if the stem ends in ka, ge, ha, zhe, sha, sha, che, or tse, write u instead of you in the first person singular and a instead of ya in the third person plural. So these are the endings, and now we're going to practice. At the end of the class, I'm going to give you some verbs, and your job is to conjugate them in present tense in the Russian language. So this was part 1 of the present tense in the Russian language. There's going to be part 2 because there are some peculiarities, and we'll talk about them in part 2. Today we discussed general information about the present tense in the Russian language. So I hope that now you get some understanding of how to use, when to use the present tense in the Russian language. So I hope that you liked this video and you enjoyed watching it. If you did, please press the button, like it, and share it in different places, social networks, and so on. It will help me a lot. So continue studying Russian with me and continue studying English with me too. So hope to see you soon in my next videos. Bye bye. And now the exercise, as I have promised. So conjugate these verbs. Be careful about defining their conjugation type. If you have problems, I have some tips for you. Pay special attention to the verb бежать because in the first person singular and in the third person plural, je changes into ge. And now check yourself. If you have any questions, write a comment. Bye!